Welcome back to Creative Alternatives. Today, we are exploring what if we colonize Mars creatively. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing Earth is no longer the boldest experiment of humanity. Imagine looking up at the night sky and knowing that somewhere on that red dot, people are laughing, painting walls, growing strange new flowers, and reinventing what it means to be human. Not surviving on Mars, but living. What if colonizing Mars wasn't just about rockets and oxygen tanks, but about creativity? For decades, we've imagined Mars colonization as a cold, technical checklist. Build domes, extract water, grow potatoes, don't die. Necessary, yes, but painfully small. Humans have never just existed anywhere. We reshape places with stories, rituals, music, conflict, and imagination. So what if the first true Martian settlement wasn't designed like a laboratory, but like a living idea? Picture the first Martian city built not in straight lines, but in spirals inspired by dust storms and ancient petroglyphs. Structures grown from bioengineered materials that slowly change color with the Martian seasons. Homes that hum softly when solar storms pass overhead. And there, instead of grey metal corridors, walls become canvases where settlers paint their journey from Earth, every fear, every hope, every failure. Mars becomes a planet that remembers. Now imagine how creativity reshapes survival itself. Gravity is lighter, days are longer, skies are pink. Dance evolve, sports evolve. New art forms are born, performances that use low gravity to turn movement into flight, music that incorporates the vibrations of the planet itself. Kids born on Mars won't draw Earth's oceans. They'll invent creatures that thrive in red dust and thin air. Their myths won't include seas and forests, but underground rivers and sky-shielded cities glowing at dusk. Creativity also changes how we govern Mars. Instead of exporting Earth's tired systems, what if Martian society is designed like an open-source project? Mode: rotating leadership, experimental laws, entire districts built around different philosophies, cooperation, radical minimalism, artistic freedom. If one model fails, it's not a collapse, it's a lesson. Mars becomes humanity's greatest sandbox, a place where we are finally brave enough to test new ways of living. And then there's identity. Are Martians still Earthlings? Or something new? Language shifts. Accents change. Slang forms around radiation storms and supply drops. Holidays emerge celebrating the first water harvest, the first child born under a glass sky, the first time Mars felt like home instead of exile. Over time, Earth becomes the old world, and Mars becomes the place where humanity dared to rewrite itself. This is the creative colonization of Mars, not an escape from Earth, but a mirror held up to it. A reminder that technology gets us there, but imagination decides what there becomes. Because if we carry the same fears, hierarchies, and limitations across space, then Mars is just Earth with better PR. But if we bring curiosity, art, and courage, Mars might be the first place where humanity finally grows up. What if creativity doesn't stop at cities and culture, but rewrites biology itself on Mars? Because Mars will not just change how we live, it will change who we become. The human body was designed for Earth, and Mars will slowly, quietly demand something different. And instead of fighting that change, what if we design it? Imagine future Martians who are taller, lighter, their bones shaped by lower gravity, eyes subtly adapted to softer sunlight, engineered to better resist radiation, not through accidents of evolution, but intentional creativity, humanity collaborating with science to sculpt itself. Mars becomes the birthplace of the first consciously designed branch of humanity. Not superior, just different. And that difference forces us to ask a dangerous, beautiful question: what does it even mean to be human anymore? Now stretch that idea further. What if Mars isn't just colonized by humans, but co-created with life itself? Bioengineered plants that glow faintly at night, lighting up tunnels without electricity. Moss that feeds on carbon dioxide and paints the surface green in slow motion. Trees grown inside domes whose roots produce oxygen and whose branches double as living architecture. Entire ecosystems designed like symphonies, each organism playing a role, sustaining the rest. And with new life comes new spirituality. Mars will feel ancient and alien. The silence alone will change people. Some settlers will look at the vast red deserts and feel watched not by gods, but by time itself. New belief systems will form, centered around stewardship instead of dominance. Rituals tied to solar cycles, dust storms, and the fragile balance between survival and arrogance. On Mars, destroying your environment isn't an abstract concept, it's suicide. That truth will shape ethics faster than any law. Creativity also transforms conflict. Mars will be too small, too fragile for endless wars. So what if disputes are settled not with violence, but with creation? Competing colonies challenge to solve shared problems through design, art, and innovation. The colony that builds the most efficient water system wins more resources. The one that creates the most uplifting public space earns influence, power measured not by force, but by contribution. Meanwhile, Earth watches, at first with pride, then with envy, then with fear, because Mars won't just be a backup planet, it will be a philosophical threat. A society that redesigned itself from the ground up will ask uncomfortable questions about inequality, waste, and power back home. Mars becomes proof that humanity can change when survival demands it. And perhaps the most creative idea of all, Mars as a second chance, not a replacement for Earth but a rehearsal for saving it. Technologies perfected on Mars, closed-loop ecosystems, zero-waste cities, cooperative governance slowly return home. The red planet becomes the laboratory where humanity learns humility, balance, and restraint. So colonizing Mars creatively isn't about conquest, it's about transformation. It's about daring to imagine that when humans step onto another world, we don't arrive as conquerors but as students. And in learning how to live on Mars, we may finally learn how to live anywhere. Now imagine the moment centuries from now when someone on Mars looks up at the sky and doesn't feel small anymore. Earth is just a bright star to them, home but distant. That's when we'll know colonizing Mars didn't just expand our reach, it expanded our perspective. By then, Mars won't be a project, it will be a civilization, a place with history, scandals, legends, and heroes no one on Earth has ever heard of. There will be famous Martian poets whose words can't be translated properly because Earth languages don't have terms for red horizons that last forever. There will be musicians composing songs based on radio signals from the sun, architects designing cities that move slowly reshaping themselves to follow warmth and light across the planet, and Mars will remember its first days. Museums carved into rock, preserving cracked helmets, early habitats, and handwritten journals from settlers who didn't know if tomorrow would come. Kids on school trips will laugh at how primitive the first colonies were, just like we laugh at old maps of Earth. History won't be about rockets, it will be about resilience, imagination, and the refusal to live small. What's truly radical is how Mars might change humanity's relationship with the universe. Once we become a multi-planet species, the idea of borders starts to feel absurd. Nationality fades. Identity stretches. You're not just from a country, you're from a planet. Maybe two. That shift alone could end conflicts we once thought were permanent. When your species has more than one home, hoarding stops making sense. And then comes the question we've avoided. If we can creatively colonize Mars, what stops us from doing it again? Moons, asteroids, floating cities in Venus's clouds, each place not copied from Earth but uniquely imagined. Humanity becomes a species of designers, not conquerors shaping itself to fit the universe instead of forcing the universe to fit us. But here's the final twist. The greatest creative act of colonizing Mars won't be what we build there. It'll be what we leave behind on Earth. A planet no longer treated as disposable. A civilization that understands how fragile worlds really are. Mars will teach us that planets aren't infinite and survival isn't guaranteed. That lesson, learned the hard way on a red desert, could be the reason Earth survives at all. So what if we colonize Mars creatively? Then Mars becomes more than a destination. It becomes a message, a declaration that humanity chose imagination over repetition, growth over greed, and wisdom over dominance. That when we stepped onto another world, we didn't carry our worst habits with us, we carried our best ideas. And maybe someday, when another species looks up at the stars wondering if anyone out there ever learned how to live peacefully, Mars will answer. Not with a signal, not with a flag, with a flag, but with a quiet, glowing civilization on a red planet that proves humanity finally understood the assignment.